There's a door that's been locked for nearly 2,000 years, and on the other side of that door lies the missing half of your soul. Have you felt it? That inexplicable emptiness, like something essential was ripped away from you before you were even born, as if a fundamental part of the divine was erased. Today, I'm going to show you what was stolen from us, and why. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why you feel fragmented, why traditional spirituality feels incomplete, and most importantly, why Eckhart Tolle insists that true enlightenment only happens when you find the balance that was lost. But first, let me tell you about Mary. Not the Mary you know, the other Mary, the one they don't want you to know. In 1945, in the town of Nag Hammadi, Egypt, a peasant farmer discovered a clay jar buried in the earth. Inside that jar, 13 leather-bound books. Books the church tried to destroy for centuries, books that revealed an uncomfortable truth. Mary Magdalene wasn't just a follower, she was the favorite disciple, the one who understood, the one who received the deepest teachings. In the Gospel of Mary, which was banished from the Bible, it says, "The Savior loved her more than all the disciples, and he used to kiss her on the mouth." The other disciples asked, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" You know what's even more disturbing? Jesus' answer, "But before I tell you, I need you to understand something. What you are about to discover isn't just about ancient history, it's about you, about the part of you that has been silenced, about the aspect of the divine that has been systematically removed from your consciousness." Eckhart Tolle says something fascinating. Most people live with only half their nature awake. He's not speaking metaphorically. He's speaking literally. Imagine for a moment that there is an energy, a creative, receptive, intuitive force, an energy that nurtures, that receives, that allows life to flourish. Now imagine that this energy was deliberately erased from the sacred texts that shaped our civilization for 2 millennia. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's spiritual archaeology. I'm going to show you the evidence. In the Gospel of Philip, another banished text, it says, "There were 3 who always walked with the Lord, Mary, his mother, her sister, and Magdalene, who was called his companion." The word used for companion in Coptic is koinonos. It means spiritual partner, spiritual equal. But here's what's truly shocking. In the same text, it says that Jesus said, "Humanity possesses 2 natures, a masculine, a feminine. Whoever finds the balance between them finds the kingdom of heaven." That sentence, that single sentence, was removed from the Bible, erased, as if it had never existed. Why? Because recognizing the feminine divine would mean recognizing that God is not only Father, he is also Mother, not only creator, but also creature, not only action, but also receptivity. And that would change everything. Have you ever noticed how traditional religions speak of the divine? Always in terms of dominance, control, hierarchy, God as king, as Lord, as judge, always masculine, always external to you. But what if that's only half the truth? Eckhart Tolle teaches that awakening happens when you stop searching for God out there and begin to recognize him within. But he goes further. He says that within you there are 2 presences, one that acts, one that receives, one that speaks, one that listens, one that seeks, one that finds. He calls this the receptive presence, and says that without it, you will never experience the totality of being. But why was this hidden from us? The answer lies in the year 325, the Council of Nicaea. Emperor Constantine gathered bishops from across the Christian world to decide one thing: which Gospels would enter the official Bible and which would be eliminated. Out of 80 Gospels, only 4 were chosen. Coincidentally, the 4 that presented a more hierarchical, more controllable version of Christianity. All the Gospels that mentioned the spiritual power of women? Banished? All those that spoke of the balance between masculine and feminine? Destroyed? All that suggested that the divine was both inside and outside of you? Erased. It was a spiritual surgery, systematic, deliberate, and it worked. For almost 2,000 years, half of the divine nature was removed from collective consciousness. The receptive, intuitive, nurturing aspect of the sacred simply disappeared. But here's what they didn't expect. You can feel this absence, can't you? This emptiness, this sense of spiritual incompleteness. Eckhart Tolle explains this beautifully. He says, when you meditate, when you truly quiet yourself, two things happen. First, you stop thinking. Second, you begin to receive. Receive what? The presence, the being, that which has always been there, but which has been silenced by mental noise and religious programming. But there's something deeper happening. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, when you make the two one, the outer inner, the masculine and feminine a single thing, then you will enter the kingdom. That's the key. The divine is not masculine or feminine, it is both, simultaneously, and so are you. Within you there is a force that acts, that creates, that manifests. Eckhart calls this the active presence. But there is also a force that receives, that welcomes, that allows, the receptive presence. Most people live only with the active presence awake. They are always doing, always pursuing, always trying to control, and they wonder why they feel empty, because half of them is asleep. The half that was erased from the sacred texts, the half that was banished from religious consciousness, the half that you need to awaken to become whole. But how? First, you need to understand what really happened in those early centuries of Christianity, because it wasn't just the suppression of texts, it was the suppression of an entire way of experiencing the sacred. In the Gnostic Gospels, those that were banished, Jesus teaches in a completely different way. He doesn't speak like someone superior speaking to inferiors. He speaks like someone awakened speaking to others who are awakening. And most importantly, he recognizes that his female disciples have direct access to divine wisdom, without intermediaries, without hierarchy, without anyone's permission. This was intolerable for a power structure that depended on spiritual control. So they did something ingenious. They transformed Mary Magdalene, who was a spiritual leader, into a prostitute. They transformed the Gospel of Mary, which taught self-realization, into heresy. They twisted the idea of inner divinity into blasphemy. And most importantly, they transformed the sacred feminine into something shameful. The result? 2,000 years of incomplete spirituality. 2,000 years of people searching outside themselves for something that was always within. 2,000 years of inner division, but something is shifting. Eckhart Tolle isn't alone. A new consciousness is emerging. A consciousness that recognizes that spiritual awakening isn't about submitting to an external authority. It's about recognizing the totality of the divine within you. And that totality includes what was erased, what was silenced, what was banished. The hidden door to the soul locked for 2,000 years and is opening again. But here's the most important thing you need to understand. When I speak of feminine energy, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about a quality of consciousness. It's the difference between doing and being, between seeking and finding, between speaking and listening. All of us, men and women, have access to both qualities, but we've been conditioned to value only one, and the active one, the masculine one, the one that makes things happen, and we forgot the other, the one that allows things to happen, the one that receives, the one that welcomes, the one that nurtures. Eckhart calls this active surrender. Sounds contradictory, doesn't it? But that's exactly what it is. It's the capacity to act from a place of deep receptivity. It's what Jesus really taught, before his teachings were edited, censored, and reshaped to serve a power system. In the original texts, Jesus doesn't teach spiritual domination. He teaches integration. He doesn't teach masculine supremacy. He teaches sacred balance. And most importantly, he recognizes that this balance is what you truly are. Not something you need to achieve, something you need to remember. But they didn't want you to remember. Because a complete person, an integrated person, a person who knows their own divine nature, is very difficult to control. That's why Mary Magdalene had to be silenced. That's why the Gnostic Gospels had to be banished. That's why the sacred feminine energy had to be erased, because it represented spiritual freedom. Self-realization, direct access to the divine, without intermediaries, without hierarchy, without permission. And now you know. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? You can continue living with half of your nature dormant, or you can begin to awaken what was lost. You can continue seeking God in temples built by others, or you can recognize the temple you always were. You can continue waiting for salvation from the outside, or you can awaken the Savior that dwells within you. But before I show you how, I need to tell you about what really happens when you begin to integrate these two natures, because it's not just spiritual growth, it's a complete revolution in how you experience reality. And that's what Eckhart discovered. That's what the banished texts reveal. That's what you are about to understand. There is a third way. A way of being that transcends the division between masculine and feminine, between active and receptive, between doing and being. And when you find this third way, everything changes. Your relationship with other people changes. Your relationship with work changes. Your relationship with yourself changes completely, because you finally stop fighting against half of yourself and begin to dance with the totality of who you are. But there's something I need to warn you about. This awakening isn't comfortable, because it means questioning everything you've been taught about spirituality, about God, about yourself. It means recognizing that you were raised with an incomplete version of the truth, and that this incompleteness wasn't accidental. It means accepting that institutions you respected may have prioritized control over liberation, power over truth, and most importantly, it means taking full responsibility for your own spiritual realization. Because when you awaken to the totality of your divine nature, you can no longer blame anyone for your incompleteness. You can no longer expect others to save you. You can no longer hide behind external authorities. You become complete, integrated, divine, exactly as it has always been your nature. Before they taught you to forget, but now you can remember. Eckhart Tolle tells a story that completely changed my understanding. He was walking in a park when he saw a tree. He didn't just look at it, he really saw it. And in that moment, he realized something extraordinary. The tree wasn't trying to be anything other than what it was. It simply existed. It received sunlight. It received water. It received nutrients from the earth. And from that total receptivity, it grew. It flourished. It bore fruit. There, he said, I understood the divine feminine, or it's not passivity, it's active receptivity. Its power through permission. And then he realized something even deeper. Human beings are the only creatures that have lost this natural capacity to receive, to allow, to be, because we were taught that being isn't enough, that receiving is weakness, that allowing is submission. But what if that's exactly the opposite of the truth? Let me show you something that will change your perspective forever. In the Gospel of Truth, another banished text, it is written, "Those who receive the name of the Father are those who rest on the eternal Sabbath." Do you know what that means? That the highest state of consciousness isn't doing more, and it's being more. It's resting in your own divine nature. But here's what's fascinating. Right after, the same text says, "And from this rest arises all true action." Do you understand it? It's not receptivity versus action. It's receptivity as the source of the most powerful action. Eckhart calls this inspired action. Action that arises from being, not from the ego. Action that flows from presence, not from fear or desire. And that is the key to everything. When you integrate these two natures, masculine and feminine, active and receptive, something magical happens. You stop fighting against life and begin to dance with it. But how does this work in practice? First, you need to recognize that you were programmed to value only half of yourself, the half that does, the half that controls, the half that conquers. Stop for a moment and feel, when was the last time you simply received? Not from a person, from life, from the present moment, from existence itself. When was the last time you allowed something to flow through you instead of trying to force something out of you? Most people have never experienced this because they were never taught that it's possible, that it's sacred, that it's divine. But in the banished Gospels, Jesus teaches precisely this. In the Gospel of Mary, he says, "Do not seek rules beyond those I have testified to you. Do not establish laws like the lawgiver, lest you be dominated by them." What does that mean? That the true spiritual path isn't about following external rules, it's about discovering the internal law. The wisdom that arises when you stop struggling and start listening, and especially when you stop judging half your nature as inferior. Eckhart Tolle discovered this the hard way. He recounts spending years trying to find God through spiritual striving, forced meditation, rigid disciplines, constant seeking, and then one day he simply stopped. He gave up the search, And in that moment of complete surrender, God found him. Not the external God of books and temples, the inner God, the presence, the being, that which was always there, but was being obscured by the effort to find it. It was then, he says, that I understood that spiritual seeking is the greatest obstacle to spiritual realization, because seeking implies that you don't have, that you are incomplete, that you need to go somewhere or become someone different. But what if you are already what you seek? What if the divine isn't something you need to achieve, but something you need to stop resisting? What if Mary Magdalene knew this? What if that's why she was the favorite disciple? Not because she was special, but because she had stopped trying to be special. In the Gnostic texts, she is described as the one who understood without effort, the one who received the deepest teachings because she didn't resist them. She had awakened sacred receptivity, the ability to allow truth to reveal itself instead of trying to capture it, and this threatened an entire system based on spiritual striving, religious hierarchy, and external mediation, because if anyone can simply receive divine wisdom directly, what is the purpose of intermediaries? What is the purpose of institutions that promise to give you what you already have? What is the purpose of spiritual leaders who insist that you need them to find God? Do you understand why this had to be suppressed? But now, 2,000 years later, this wisdom is returning, not through institutions, not through leaders, through people like you who are rediscovering their own completeness. And Eckhart Tolle is just one of the messengers. There are others. More and more people are awakening to this ancient truth that was temporarily forgotten. The truth that you don't need salvation. You need remembrance. You don't need completeness. You need to recognize the completeness you already are. You don't need to find God. You need to stop hiding from Him. But here's what's truly transformative. When you awaken this sacred receptivity, your entire life changes. Your relationships change because you stop trying to control other people and allow them to be who they are. And paradoxically, they feel more free to open up to you. Your work changes because you stop forcing solutions and allow them to emerge. And you discover that the best ideas come when you're not trying to have them. Your health changes because you stop fighting against your body and start listening to it. And it shows you exactly what it needs to thrive. Your spirituality changes because you stop seeking God in complicated places and find Him in the simplest place of all, here, now, within you. That's what the banished texts truly teach. Not a different religion, a completely different way of existing, a way that recognizes that you are already sacred, already complete, already divine. You just forgot, because you were taught to forget, but now you're remembering. And each person who remembers makes it easier for others to remember as well. It's as if the collective consciousness is awakening from a very long sleep, a sleep that began when half of the divine nature was systematically removed from the sacred texts. But the sleep is ending, and you are among the first to awaken. There's something more I need to tell you about what really happens when a person completely integrates these two natures. Eckhart Tolle calls it the inner virgin birth. And it has nothing to do with physical birth. It has to do with something being born within you that has never existed before. A new form of consciousness. A consciousness that is neither masculine nor feminine, but both simultaneously. A consciousness that neither acts nor receives, but acts through receptivity. And when this happens, you become a channel for something much greater than your small personal self. You become a channel for life itself, for love, for wisdom, for what the ancients called logos, the divine verb, the word that creates worlds. But it's not something you do. It's something that happens through you when you stop preventing it from happening. And this is what Mary Magdalene had understood. That's why Jesus loved her more than all the others. Not romantic love, love of recognition, the recognition of someone who had become a pure channel for the divine, someone who had found the perfect balance between being and doing, between receiving and giving, between sacred feminine and masculine, someone who had become complete. And the threat this posed to a system based on incompleteness, on spiritual dependence, on separation between the human and the divine, was total. That's why she had to be silenced. That's why the Gospels that honored this completeness had to be banished. That's why the very possibility of complete realization had to be removed from the collective consciousness, because complete people are impossible to control. People who know their own divinity don't need intermediaries. People who have discovered the sacred balance within themselves cannot be manipulated by promises of external salvation. They have become free, and freedom. Freedom has always been the greatest threat to any system of power. But here's the beautiful thing. This freedom cannot be destroyed. It can be temporarily forgotten. It can be suppressed for a few centuries. It can be banished from official texts. But it cannot be eliminated, because it is inscribed in the very nature of what you are. You are the door that was locked, and you are also the key that can open it. You are what was lost, and you are also the one who can find it. You are the half that was erased, and you are also the completeness that can be restored, not through effort, not through seeking, not through complicated practices or secret initiations, but through the simple recognition that what you seek never left you. It was merely temporarily forgotten, like a dream that feels real while you're asleep, but vanishes the moment you awaken. And now, you are awakening. The hidden door to the soul, locked for 2,000 years, wasn't truly locked. You simply believed it was. The missing piece of your being one was never truly lost. You just learned not to see it. The feminine divine that was suppressed from the Bible was never truly erased. It has always been here, within you, patiently waiting to be acknowledged. And now you recognize, you see the tree in the park. You don't just look at it, you truly see it. And in it, you recognize yourself, receptive, allowing. Flourishing through the complete acceptance of what is, you hear the silence between the thoughts, and in that silence, you find what you've been searching for amidst all the noise. You feel the presence that has always been present, the consciousness that has always been conscious, the being that always was, and you understand, and finally, that the spiritual journey was never about arriving somewhere. It was always about realizing you never left home. The door was never locked. You just needed to remember at us how to turn the handle. Eckhart Tolle speaks of this profound simplicity, this homecoming. It's not a destination, it's a recognition, a remembering, a return to the self. This inherent wholeness and this innate divinity, it's always been there, waiting for you to discover it, to remember it, to become it. The Council of Nicaea, the suppression of texts like the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Thomas. These historical events highlight a suppression of a vital aspect of the divine, a silencing of the feminine voice. But this inner knowing, this intuitive wisdom, this feminine aspect of divinity remains within each of us, waiting to be rediscovered, waiting to be integrated, waiting to restore the balance of masculine and feminine energies within our own beings. Eckhart Tolle's teachings on presence, on receptive and active presence, offer a path and a way to access this hidden power, to heal this ancient wound, to unlock the hidden door to our souls. This is not a matter of belief. It is a matter of experience, a matter of presence, a matter of awakening.